Hello, everybody. Welcome to Panoramic Perspectives. My name is Carl Johnson, and normally I would say, and this is Elise Giamacco Carlson, but Elise has had a very tight schedule and she just couldn't be with us tonight. She was here when it counted, but we wish we had her for the next hour. However, we do have a very interesting and esteemed guest tonight, and we always do, but and everyone's unique. So we are Panorama Paranormal. When Elise is with it, we know we are a team of two. And we have some Paracon engagements coming up. And what I'm really looking forward to is Ocean State Paracon. I believe that's going to be the 9th and 10th of September. And it has returned to Harrisville, Rhode Island, which, of course, is associated with the movie The Conjuring and the whole story of the Perrin family. And it's just nice to have it there. Ocean State Paracon is an event where I see people that I'll usually see once a year, if I'm fortunate enough to see them there. And it's a hobnobber. It's just networking, and it's good to get together with people I don't see very often. And it's going to be in the backyard of the setting for the motion picture The Conjuring. So I want to tell you a little bit about our guest, but I think he's going to tell me more about himself than I can remember right now. But he is involved with Essex County Ghost Project, as in he originated that, and Haverhill Cemetery is his real station for investigating. He's been there, I think, more than anyone except the custodians there. And, he probably mows the lawn there too and shovels snow. Yeah. So we have, and he's very much associated with Salem, Massachusetts, which is where I see him most of the time. Okay, Mr. Tom Spitalere.
How you doing, Carl? Thanks for having me on
tonight. Yeah, hello there. And somewhere, I don't know if Ken will boot it up or someone will boot it up. I have a nice picture of us together. We were standing in front of Ladd Observatory.
Oh, yes.
I don't know who's handsomer. I really don't.
You are.
I might. Oh, thank you. Well, I can't say that in my contract,
You got more hair than I do.
Well, that's a given. I cannot dispute that. But I'm working on losing it. That's all right. All the stress and all that. Yeah, that was for one of my H.P. Lovecraft convocations. Annually I present a tribute to Howard Phillips Lovecraft of Providence, Rhode Island, the horror fantasy writer.
So right.
Described it. And he was also my cousin. I could say distant cousin, but it's not too much. Second cousin. Yeah.
Nice.
His how could I put it? His grandmother was my mother's great aunt. So,
okay.
It ties in together. It's all on the mother's side and all that.
And when you introduced me as Essex County, which is correct. And it's Haverhill, Massachusetts. The cemetery is Hilldale Cemetery.
Hillville Cemetery.
And we also have the printer for Lovecraft buried at Hilldale Cemetery.
Oh my! What goes around comes around. I mean, it's a small horror community, isn't it? I mean, you find connections through H.P. Lovecraft. Any of our interests, basically. I wouldn't associate H.P. Lovecraft with the paranormal. He was a horror fantasy writer. I mean, if you can stretch it and say that's paranormal.
But the museum I work at, the Buttonwoods Museum, in 1920 or so, H.P. Lovecraft showed up on an unofficial visit as he made it through Haverhill. And he actually made it into Lawrence because his attaché case was left on the trolley in Haverhill, and it went to Lawrence, Massachusetts. So he had to go back to the barn in Lawrence to get the attaché case.
I do things like that myself. That's an easy thing to do.
Yeah, it is. I'm getting like that too. I'm forgetting everything.
If he had the renown during his lifetime that he achieved posthumously, that would have been like H.P. Lovecraft's attaché case. What secrets are in it? The notes from the Necronomicon. Do we even dare to save it for him? Don't open it. But now, he was just H.P. Lovecraft back then. He was a burgeoning writer, successful in his circles, the pulp fiction magazines at the time. So that sounds like you're somewhat knowledgeable about Lovecraft.
I had to get a little knowledge when I found out we had Charles W. Tryout Smith, and we put a stone up from a couple of years ago at Hilldale Cemetery because he never had a stone.
Oh, really? Same with Lovecraft. Didn't have a stone for 40 years.
Exactly. And you put the stone up in Rhode Island, and a good friend of mine from Florida, his brother runs the New England Horror Authors Group. which is you're probably involved in that group, right? The New England Horror Authors Association.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
If
His brother came from Florida to help raise money to put that stone up for Tryout Smith, and that's what he wrote it in. That's where the nickname came from. H.P. Lovecraft gave him the nickname Tryout Smith for his little magazine Tryouts.
Oh wow. You're educating me. This is interesting. I do find this very fascinating.
Well, you always find it. I wish I could made it to Rhode Island this year. I missed this year, but I was there 2 years ago. I had a great time.
Well, let me tell you what we did this year in April 23rd. There was a reason it was that date. There's when my keynote speakers could get together. That morning, my friend Christian was in Rhode Island, and he said, he called up. He said, "What do you think? Maybe we should call it," because we had 2 weekends in a row, 2 Sundays, I should say, 2 Sundays in a row. We had torrential rain. Talk about downpour. It was fantastic rain. And to the point where Chris, even though he traveled to be with us, he said, we should call it. Nobody's going to be there. And I said, I'll tell you what, since we have to do a little driving anyway, let's just go to Swan Point Cemetery in Providence, to Lovecraft's grave. If nobody shows up, we've still made the excursion. We're having a fun time. The diehards might show up. Well, let's just see what happens. Let's see if anybody comes. So we had 12 people.
That's a good turnout.
It has been our maximum turnout when we were having the H.P. Lovecraft service of tribute. We were having that at Ladd Observatory. The maximum we had was, I think, 132 or 134. But it generally is around 60 to 80 people will come to this. But it's rain. If you can remember what it was like those Sundays in April.
It poured.
It's like, we're foolish to think anybody's going to come, but we'll have a good time. We'll take some pictures in the rain. And by gum, we had a dozen people, and we loved it. We've had the crowds before. We just had a good time. We did not have a Thomas Spitalere, but that would be a distance for you. And what were you in Maine? You'd have to, or were you in? Yeah.
No, we moved the Parafest back this way because there were some things that came up in December and January that I had to maneuver the Parafest this year a little bit more than I wanted to. But we're working on a brand new one.
Who just said that? We're lucky, and he's talking about the service. We're lucky, and H.P. Love, was it? Cthulhu, yeah. Well, I memorized what it said. Lovecraft was lucky a Cthulhu egregore wasn't created. With that febrile imagination of his, H.P. Lovecraft, maybe, like with his powerful creative mind, sometimes a little deviant, but, an egregore, you're familiar with that term?
Yes.
You make a blueprint of it psychically, and it kind of becomes real. It's a theory. Actually, people are thinking along those lines. Quantum speculative physicists are thinking of that, that you can actually create something with your mind and it sticks around. Hey, you've got Conjuring Up Philip, that experiment. And who knows what's really happening out there, Yeah, H.P. Lovecraft was lucky. I think he would have been delighted if he could have created something like that.
Yeah.
Well, he did in our minds, and that's important.
Yeah. And that's all that matters, Carl.
Yeah. So now, if Elise was here, and she's got so much she's doing, I would never press her to be. I wanted her here, but and she liked Tom. But when was it that we went to Salem? You had the talk at the Hawthorne Hotel, and we were in your audience.
4 years ago, right before COVID.
Yeah, I think it was 2019, later on in the year, like October or November.
No, it was actually the beginning of the year. It was
would have put it at 2020.
April. It was probably April we did that.
Yeah.
And we're actually planning something similar to that coming up for the New England Parafest, which will be the New England Parafest, if all goes well, and I will announce it soon. We're going to probably have a month-long event.
A month-long? Because you were going to do 2 weeks before, and now you've expanded it to a month. You're going to keep people entertained that long?
I do a lot of different things. We do the weekend big events, and then during the week I do my Tom Live shows, my Facebook shows, my TV shows back in Haverhill and Lawrence.
Yeah, Haverhill. That's what at least would, if at least we now, so Tom, when was that we got together at the Hawthorne Hotel? I mean, like we're trying to decide just when was that?
Yeah, you covered in, and we actually, that was the best event of the weekend.
We had such a good time there.
That brought in the biggest crowd of the weekend, and we had a great time at the Hawthorne. We'll be doing that again, and we'll be calling you for that because it was a great time.
Call me in because that's closer than Maine for me. I can drive to Salem without too much of a problem. Well, if it's October, it is what it is.
No, we'll be doing it in March or April again.
Then you won't be bombarded with the tourist.
No, we brought in the diehards, and they had a grand old time that year. Every time we do an event, people have a grand old time. I sent you a list of some of the stuff we do, yes. But some of the other stuff that wasn't on the list, we have a thing called Scare Cancer. We've done that for 3 cancer patients, where we raise money, and all the money goes to the cancer patients. We did one for a kidney transplant last year.
Wow. And it was successful.
And it was a successful turnout. Yeah. Wow. So, I mean, we help everybody we can on top of the list of the stuff I already sent you, all the nonprofits we've been doing for years.
Well, you're like a paranormalist with a cause. You like the Ocean State Paracon is always for a charity. The proceeds go to always a worthy cause or a worthy charity. And that's what you do.
Mm-hmm. So the thing is, nonprofits are barely surviving.
Yeah.
Okay. Things are getting worse out there. I mean, we could spend a whole hour show on economics, but this is about the paranormal. I mean, I'll make it short and sweet for the people who are listening. Go to your local market and see how much the price of food increased.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, increases are coming all over the place. Small museums like the Garrison House, Hilldale Cemetery, which is a 21-acre cemetery that I took over with all the funds wiped out. I mean, gas prices aren't going down anytime soon. They're still at, $3.35 a gallon or whatever it's at, $3.40, $3.50. We're not trying to advertise anybody over anybody, but it takes money to keep these places going. The train station in Sandown, the Tenney Gatehouse, it takes a lot of money. And it's better to think outside the box because you get a different crew than the same crew you're always getting when you run your regular fundraisers. So we come in, we run a fundraiser for the nonprofit. If there's any nonprofits that need my help, I'm easy to find.
Right. And raising money has always been tough, but you look at it like 10, 12 years ago, money is always tough. Like, we just don't have it. It's not a good time. But look at it now. It was easier then.
Yeah. And it's getting worse.
Yeah. So.
I mean, it's getting worse. I mean, I've started different programs to make it easier for people to come to events. I'm starting a new one called Coffee with a Paranormal Investigator. It launches, I don't have my calendar book with me, but it's it's at a store to help a store out, a metaphysical store up in Raymond, New Hampshire.
Really? Oh.
And I mean, up for me, down, way up for you, but up for me. I mean, I'm not that far. I'm based out of Bethune, Lawrence, and Haverhill.
Bethune, that's right. That's the key to get to where you are.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is what it is. And, we're always trying something different.
So you do good things. You are a philanthropist. Yeah. In fact, a regular listener of ours, Sarah Yosef, she just said, that's great. Just commending you on what you.
Thank you, Sarah.
She doesn't miss our show and was so appreciative of that. But Tom, you do good things. You're a good guy. A lot of people know who you are. What started you? I mean, I'm a paranormal researcher. I specialize as a demonologist, which puts some people off, other people it draws them in.
Right.
You can't say demonologist without giving an explanation.
Right.
Because it clears out sections of restaurants if you talk about it. Which can be good if you want the best table, but
right, exactly. If you're at a restaurant, why not?
Yeah. But I mean, I'm actually
so what started me in this? Well, I'll be honest.
You got.
I got hooked early on. My grandfather's house had a spirit in it. I spent a lot of time there, and I hear him walking up and down the stairs. It was a residual. Now, when I know what it was back then, I didn't. It was residual energy. It walked the same steps up, down.
It's not something you could. It wasn't interactive. You're saying,
right? Correct.
You couldn't say, "Oh, hold on, I want to hear you," or answer me. Just they kind of go about their business.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then I got hooked on a show called Unsolved Mysteries.
Our primer, yeah, one of our unsolved mysteries. Yeah, what else? What were the great ones?
With Robert Stack. That was my favorite one.
Unsolved Mysteries with Robert Stack. Yeah. I'm your host, Robert Stack. Yes.
Right. So I got hooked on that. And even as a kid, I never told anybody, but I could see things and feel things. And
you know, I
knew I wasn't normal.
Paralleling that was probably In Search of.
Yes.
Where we explore the various mysteries. They were just stellar hosts for those early shows, the forays.
Oh, yeah. They were great.
There
we go. There's my hero.
I'm your host, Robert Stack. I love that man. I wanted to be him. I mean, that's what my conception of a demonologist should look and talk and dressed in the trench coat like Robert Stack. That's a real demonologist. I'm just Carl. That's
just Carl.
If I could feel like him consistently.
Right. So that's how I got started.
Yeah.
That's how I got started. And then I started with another team. And then one day I said, I could do this on my own. So in November 2001 or so, I decided to form the Essex County Ghost Project.
Yes.
And we went from, a few, small time to 100 plus between home investigations, public events, and these type of radio shows, and even local radio shows. In October, I'm pretty much on everybody's local radio station down here.
You do get around, I know.
And then I also, 3 years, this will be the third year we're doing it. We don't have a date booked yet, but it's getting different in the field. Things you wouldn't expect people to call you to do talks. Yeah, we all do library talks. October, big for those, right, Carl?
Yeah, I had
a few of those. I think we all get those.
Yeah, they start getting them in the spring, like around.
I know. I know. I got a couple already booked. But the Merrimack Valley Chamber of Commerce asked me to do that, which is the largest chamber in this end of New England. They asked me to speak at a business conference about the paranormal. It took off so big. I've been doing it now. I'm on the third year.
Yeah, you don't even have to tie that into business pursuits.
No.
They want to hear about the paranormal.
Right. Which I found interesting. And then I get a couple of retirement homes, which I found really interesting.
They like to hear about ghosts.
I was shocked when they would call me and I would tell them, you want to come in and do a thing about paranormal? And I'm thinking to myself, all these people are getting ready to die. Well, they want to hear about the after.
I'm going to put that direct.
It's like, okay, but they enjoy it. The important thing is they enjoy it.
You want to talk about spooky things. That's what they want to hear. Tell your experiences, and people will love that. Yeah. I like the way you said that, though.
So it's a growing field. I've also done adult daycare centers for the older people who have special needs and stuff that, they're home. They just give their parents the break. They go to these day centers all day. I've spoken at those. So it's all about educating the public.
Everything you say, it makes me want to ask another question, but I should say, so I don't forget before the end of our show, Sarah Yusuf asked, it's great. How does one become involved? Do you have a website you can direct?
I have a website, but about 4 months ago, that's why we had to change the paranormal thing around. The host of the website never told us they were shutting down. They just shut down.
Oh, okay.
So we're in the process. Then we created another one, EssexCountyGhostProject.com. Now, and then for some reason, I brought in somebody that found the old website, the EssexCountyGhostProject.com, and now we're in the process of merging both of those sites together.
Good.
So once that's done, but our Facebook is up and running. I have Essex County Ghost Project on Facebook, Paranormal NH on Facebook. I got 5 pages on Facebook that you can contact me.
You're into charitable ventures and restoring sites, buildings, businesses. You're not settling for just like looking for ghosts. It's not enough for you.
No. We do that too. We help plenty of people. Last weekend we had a case that we thought was going to be real bad, and I almost thought I had to call you in according to the
thank you.
thing.
You're welcome.
And then when we got there, it wasn't as bad as what the pre-case said, you know.
Oh.
It was one of those things because they saw dark shadows in the house. They thought it was the demons.
Well, yeah, that's a very easy conclusion to jump to, and people do. Beware of self-diagnosis where somebody has, I have a demon in my house. It's going to be easier if they say, I have an unknown in my house.
Right.
But they personify it, which is very, very tempting to do. You know,
well,
like
this
also, if it's inconvenient, it's scary.
Right. This also had an incubus involved too.
Well, that's pretty direct. Yeah,
so. I mean, there was a lot of things going on. It was a relatively new housing project too, but I found a 1600 graveyard on the site. So,
well, connection there. I think not.
So we're still working on research, and we'll probably have to go back. We had another house we've been working on, so we've got a few houses. We get calls, we go.
Graves dating to the 17th century, you can find perhaps 25 in southern New England.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about states that, well, Rhode Island is tiny. If you put all of New England together, you have an average size state anyway. But I'm talking about, you go like Vermont, and New Hampshire's bigger, but Vermont and Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. You may find 25 graves. I'm probably understating it, but as far as confirmed to be of the 1600s, it's amazing because the area was populated, yet there's only a vestige of houses and graves.
Well, here's a great
either.
Right. Here's a story I use all the time. About 7-8 years ago now, I used to work in Exeter, New Hampshire, which is, we all know, is the UFO capital of the world. Okay. And I would go in early because I'd drop my mother off at work, and then I'd go up to work. I'd get breakfast. I'm up there early, right?
Yeah.
Well, I found a small historical society that opens on Tuesdays called the Southampton Historical Society. They're only open 9 to 11 on Tuesday morning. That's it. Okay. All volunteer ran. This lady, so I go in and I look around and I introduce myself, and I'm a shy guy, Kyle, right? So I don't make a lot of friends.
Is that what you want people to believe?
So I made some friends and I started helping out there in the morning.
Yeah, it was fun. You got more friends than the society, than the Quaker,
So I helped them out. There was a Whittier home that was in Southampton that moved to Connecticut, and stuff like that. So I knew the Whittier history. So I helped them out, right? This lady walks in and goes, ma'am, I think her name was Claire or something. Do you know anything about ley lines?
Mm-hmm. Are you asking me, or is that what you said?
That was that lady said, the main volunteer. And the lady's looking at her going, what is ley lines? I said, I'll take care of this. What's the problem? Well, there was a house built in the 1700s further up the road near the Hawes Graveyard, Hawes. Hawes Graveyard. That name might ring a bell to you, Cal.
I've heard. Well, I know how to spell it. Yeah.
Yeah. So the house kept going up on the market. It sold. Somebody would buy it. 6 months later, it's on the market. Come to find out, they're having paranormal issues. We never got to formally investigate this place, but I was able to help her out anyhow. So it used to be an apple orchard. Many generations later, the family sold it off, right? So I asked if there was a deed. Yes, there was a deed. They showed me the deed. In the deed, it said this land is supposed to stay in the family in perpetuity.
Yeah, perpetuity.
Yeah, perpetuity. And guess how it was signed?
Roger Williams?
No. They cut the thumb, mix it with a little clay, the big dot of blood that you see on the word. Yeah.
Well, it would help out if somebody was illiterate, couldn't know your name.
So many years later,
surprises me.
Right. 14, 16 generations later, they would get rid of the house. But they subdivide the back properties into units.
What I almost said was, would they sign it in blood? But I was going to be joking.
No, it was signed in blood, like a lot of the old deeds were. So they tore down the barn and built these brand new homes all the way out back on the old farm property. So we'll call it the green farmhouse was having major issues. Well, she's in there. The lady who lives behind her wants the history of the land. She comes in, not knowing what was going on. I just happened to be there.
Mm-hmm.
They seen a shadow figure and the keys moved, this, that, and the other thing. So I think myself, interesting. I said, you got the death records here of Hampton Falls somewhere? Yep, we do, Tom. Let me look through them. Let's find out when the original owner died. Well, he died in the wintertime, 1726-27. Okay. Well, I wonder where he's buried. I know where he's buried. There's only two places you can bury somebody in the wintertime back then. You know where that was?
Well, I know. Are you asking?
Yeah. In the basement of a house or in a barn.
Yeah. They could leave them in a holding crypt,
Right. Or they can leave them in a holding crypt.
That would be transitory. That's not the permanent place. Yeah. But
correct.
If they wanted to keep them around the barn, or, eerie to think that they would bury them in the house, but unless they had other means, that's kind of what they have to do.
So I said, okay, now let's go find out where the barn was. So I find some old pictures of the place. Look at the new house. Look where the barn was. Guess where the barn was, where the new house is. That solved that mystery.
Yep.
And then the other house was solved because of the selling it of the land.
Well, these all seem to be formulaic for a haunting,
Yeah.
Well, we think factors that might generate a haunting, the unrest, the fact that they've never left home, that they're being trodden upon. They're like still there, still part of the household. Still, they are part of the household and become parts of the involved with these successive families. That's the theory, and of course, there's some suggestion that is what can happen.
Right.
Do you? Is there anything you won't do? Any place you won't go? Maybe not.
I'll go anywhere.
But that's what I think about you. I associate you with that you won't turn something down, especially if someone kind of wants answers and seems to need help.
I mean, even if it's very little paranormal and it's because there's some psychosomatic, other things going on, I'll still go back to the house. We have clients like that I still they'll call me out of the blue, and I'll just talk to them over the phone.
Right. And give them some reassurance, because not everybody thinks they're crazy. Somebody actually is interested in their story.
Right.
Want to listen to them. And sometimes that's basically what they need. And you don't always have to find the ghosty, because if somebody's always looking for I didn't see any full-bodied apparition, I didn't hear someone shout my name, you become continually disappointed. You must go to a site because the site is interesting and the people who have called you in are interesting.
Well, I like to go, and the other thing when I go on sites, I've actually coined a few new names out in the paranormal world. Now, we have the Canosa Triangle in Haverhill, the Sandown Triangle, the Salem-Wyndham Derry Triangle, which is part of the bigger Ossipee Triangle. I just shortened it a little bit because it made more sense. And then I just put one up in Hampton, New Hampshire, not Hampton Beach, but Hampton, New Hampshire. So when I go to a house, I get a call, ding, ding, ding. We're going. I'm looking around to see what else is going on. Then I will research the area, and lo and behold, you will find other haunted sites in that area.
And then you connect the triangle to key points,
or the angle, because it's not all
angle, some containment.
Yeah,
in the vicinity.
Right. You get a map and you peg it on a pegboard and go, now, why is this? Why do we have so many of these as triangles that Lauren Coleman uses, or your cousin uses the word flap area, your cousin Paulino.
Yeah, he is.
Yep, who's also a descendant of H.P. Lovecraft too. But
that brings us together.
That brings you together, yes. But in these areas, there's all things going on that link it together. There's water. There's granite in some of these areas. There's train tracks. There's underground hidden water areas. and then you look at the sky and go, okay, UFO sightings. You just Google it over this, and then you start reading and go, oh, that was here, that was there, that was here. And you go, wow. And then you find an obscure thing where they found a wild man out in the woods in the late 1600s in another town in another area.
You have to wonder what these reports are from. I mean, now I think you have a lot of reports of cryptids and humanoids, hominins. Back then, though, it was not readily attributed to like cryptids. You'd have the wild man out there, and you have to wonder what the truth is behind it. I mean, I don't think these people were just imagining or inventing these stories, unless they were like genuine fun folk tales like Davy Crockett would weave. Some of them seem like real reports of something they saw.
Mm-hmm.
Wild man makes you wonder what was out there.
What was the weirdest question someone ever asked me?
I think you should feel that. But I haven't finished my questions yet.
Okay, let's finish yours, Cal.
Home run. No. I want to hear. It'd be good. Actually,
weirdest question someone ever asked me.
Asked you, yes.
Asked me. Let me see. I've had a
paranormal because we could go for a 3-hour show otherwise.
Right. I actually had a few weird ones. It's always fun when you do library events and the local public access station happens to show up. Because then you have the people in the room that you give them a little power. So I did this big event in Lawrence at the Heritage State Park years ago. There must have been about 40, 50 people there. For the Heritage State Park, that's a good turnout, okay?
Yeah, with a little power comes a little responsibility.
Right. So the first question ever asked to me was, and I heard these people talking how religious they were and all this other stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I also have to pertain to this question, I had already showed some stuff that night of my haunted collection of stuff I've taken out of people's homes, right? And
afraid of bringing things back with you?
I have a secret location where I lock them down safely.
You are taking precautions.
I am, and I check the area regularly and I lock it down regularly. But the question was, do you believe in God?
Interesting that someone would ask you, not just do you believe in ghosts, do you believe in demons? Somebody asked, do you believe in God?
And I said, I have my own beliefs. And she said, well, God's the only one that can actually handle a demon. Or negative entities. I said, not necessarily. Well, if you don't believe in God, how do you get rid of them? I said, well, first of all, not everybody believes in one God. You have Buddhists, you have Shintos, you have Jewish people, you have Catholics, you have Christians, you have other Christians that don't believe what other Christians believe. So I told her, being a paranormal investigator, you have to be open to everybody. You go to a house that's high Catholic and you use sage to cleanse it, it's not going to work. You use holy water, it will work because they believe in it. So I have to be open to all religions. And that's probably the weirdest question I ever got.
That is,
and then they left. They thought they were going to trip me up on camera. They ended up walking out.
And that was on camera. Yeah. Well, that's tantamount to asking, they say there's people are in a cabin, they got a timeshare, they're out in a cabin. And you got some predatory beasts out there, like, wolves aren't that intimidating unless there's a pack of them, or unless they have rabies. Say there's a rabid coyote outside the door of the cabin. Now, one person could say they could make a call to the wildlife preserve. Well, only the rangers can handle those critters. They know what to do, and they have the rubber gloves, no, we need to do something about this right now because we can't leave while this beast is there. If you can't come over here, what are we going to do? And it's like, when addressing the demonic realm, it's somebody has to do something, and you can't always adjudicate and determine just what approach is going to work best. Is it a free Dybbuk? Is it what kind of demon is it? Is it succubus, incubus? Just something has to be done And not everybody's going to agree with how to handle that, if it should be handled at all. But sometimes somebody has to take action, and you
Right.
take action. By the way, it sounds like this room where you keep your things, it's like your acquisitions. It sounds like it's a Dybbuk room, kind of. You keep it warded and closed. Actually, I'm
Well,
trying.
some
Yeah.
of these things I will bring with me to my Parafest I did last year.
Oh, you're fearless. Oh my God.
Well, if I have different categories of them. I have
Right.
1, 2, 3, basically. One is the people think it might be haunted. There was a little energy on it, but not even enough to light up a light bulb. So those I bring in protected globes, and you bring them out. They're fine.
You do use that, because the Cody Ray and Satori, Cody Des and Satori Hawes, they have their haunted. They're the paranormal couple. And they have their haunted museum they travel with.
And then the second one would be they're a little bit more powerful. If I think they're going to be a danger, they stay at home, and number 3 stays in my secret location. They'll never come out.
So some of them are formidable enough that you wouldn't bring them around to show.
Correct.
You're comfortable with that? I mean, you must have some reason for sequestering these objects. Yeah.
I mean, the people want them gone. We find energy on them. We remove them from the house. So what I usually do is, say I get called to a house where we don't know what's going on. We get there. We find some energy located to a picture or something.
Right. Associated with
a doll. We'll say a doll. Dolls are the favorite ones to pick on.
Yeah, they're spooky. Everybody talks about the dolls.
Exactly. So what I would do is I'd take the doll out. She would sign away. But if she wanted the doll, say we think it's the doll, but we're not sure. So I'll take the doll. I'll go secure it. I'll call her in a couple of days to see what's going on, her or him, the homeowner, the client. And if it's calm, it's on the doll. If they want it back, I'll bring it back to them. If they don't want it back, I go see them with another paper for them to sign it off to me.
So that nobody can contest that later. Say, you kept our doll.
Right. Exactly.
They might have forgotten that they told you to.
Right. Exactly. So here's the note.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Now, Tom, what, in your opinion, where's the power in these objects? If nobody knows it's haunted, is it still a haunted doll or haunted object or haunted easy chair? I mean, does it absolutely require belief? And this is a tough question because you can answer it either way. But I'll ask you tough questions. It's like, is it harmful at all if nobody knows it's haunted or if nobody cares about it? But a caveat there is, if somebody says, I don't believe any of that stuff, and no haunted dolls, I'm not going to have a haunted chair. But if they're going that far as to declaim it, in the back of their mind, something's wondering, the seed is planted.
Mm-hmm.
And, like somebody could say, I don't believe this house is haunted. I picked up the doll, big deal. It didn't move. But then when they leave the house, they back into a fire hydrant.
Right. And there's the doll sitting on the fire hydrant that was in the living room, right?
Well, that'd be it might be a haunted doll then. If you find sitting back, in your own home, you might have a haunted doll.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is what I think of that. That's a very good question, Kyle. I mean,
it hasn't been yet. I know you will.
Any way it could. So first of all, we go into the house with the idea, okay, what's going on? We do all our sweeps. Then we find the doll, or we'll use the doll, for example. And then the client will tell me, I think that's the reason why my house has had issues, because I bought this at a secondhand store, and ever since I bought it, we've been having issues.
Yeah, it's food for thought. It makes you wonder.
Right. And then I'll go to another house, which we can't find anything wrong at the time, because sometimes you go to a house once and there's nothing. You go back a second time and you're bombarded with everything. So that does happen.
People come in waves and fluxes.
Right. So I'll go back to the house again. There's the doll sitting on the chair. I'm going to myself, that thing looks freaky, but it didn't do anything the first time. Second time, it does something. I go, so what happened? She goes, well, the doll scared me, so I think it's haunted. Sometimes those spirits, in my opinion, will lay dormant if you leave them alone.
Oh.
They'll lay dormant in the doll.
Right.
They're
inert, but they're still there.
They're still there, but they'll lay dormant. They'll let you throw it around the room, let the kids wrestle with the doll, body slam the doll like the old wrestling dolls, and all that. But if
I never
some
had a wrestling doll. Did you have a wrestling?
no, darn it, if something triggered it, like an argument in the house,
Yeah, right.
which a lot of people do argue. I mean, that's human nature. And the
Uh-huh.
arguing gets bad, it might trigger the doll to do something to trigger the energy. Something changes in the house. You get a dog or a cat that the doll don't like, then it might trigger it. So yes, there are trigger points to these energies. You can have that doll for 30 years and nothing happens. Then you go buy Wolfie, a nice German Shepherd, and Wolfie don't like the doll and starts growling at it and scratches at it. Well, now it's going to wake up the spirit.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean,
because they look like little humans, dogs,
right.
generally.
So you don't know what's going on with these spirits. So sometimes I say they'll lay dormant for years. And then all of a sudden something triggers it, it pops open. And I also think humans can trigger spirits too. If they think enough, if they keep saying their house isn't haunted and they're not respecting the spirit, it's going to show itself. And if you think your house is haunted and you're disrespecting the spirit, it's going to show itself eventually.
And it can start off with activity that's
right.
inscrutable. People can't apply any reason.
Right.
Why they're hearing the footsteps, why are objects moving around? But then when they decide or someone tells them it's haunted, then it becomes personified. You know what I mean? Then it's a presence. Then now we know we have a ghost and it's going to behave like a ghost because the subjects.
And then what they do is before they call you or I in, they go to their neighbors and they go, "Oh, we saw this on X show last night. You must have a demon."
Yeah.
Or we saw this on the show last night. You have something real bad. You better get a hold of a paranormal team immediately. Ring, ring, ring. Essex County. Yeah, I got a demon. I need your help immediately. What's going on? And then you look at the signs of what demonic hauntings are, and there's nothing on the checklist.
So we have to come
except the black shadow figure, which
well, then one can become a neologist, whether you invent your name, your terms, which I've done some of because it's convenient, I don't have a name for it. Okay, maybe it'll catch on. I'll come up with a few like I came up, Lamia Navitas is one I've applied. Just energy vampire, where people just feel so depleted and drained, but it has to be the right family combination, the right personalities,
right,
for that to kick off. And
and not only that, most demons act like parasites anyhow.
Yep.
That's another word that's being used by other demonologists.
It's generally not so much possession and oppression or objects flying around in poltergeist fashion. Sometimes it's attrition. A little bit of wearing, like, I had a blood work done. I don't know what's the matter with me. I just know I feel so not every time. Usually it's physiological, but sometimes it is something more metaphysical and sinister. Wow. So now you have decided you are going to pursue demonology. Is that correct? Because there are all kinds of rumors about you out there. I want to get that one. You're going to turn into a demonologist. You have been giving it some thought. Can you confirm or deny at this time? Will you confirm or deny?
Well, first of all, I'll never be you, Carl, because you are the greatest demonologist of all times.
Well, I'd have to change my shave head. I do appreciate. Thank you so much.
But I believe if you're active in the paranormal and you're doing the stuff that we do, you need experts like you. But we also need, as a teams out there, we need to be able to deal with them. There are teams out there that won't even deal with them. They'll just call me up. Tom, I got this case. You need to handle it.
You do have that
all the time. I don't believe if you're out in the paranormal, you're out in the paranormal. You're out there to help people. Okay. I know teams out there that won't even do private investigations. All they like to do are fundraisers. I do it all. I also study the cryptozoology part of this because it's all linked. And yes, I have, studied a little bit about demonology. I read all your books.
Thank you.
Very good.
In fact, I have a chapter in Shadow Realms Demonology Handbook about it's called "Beware Those Dolls." And then to add to it, my co-author Lana Jan Brock, she's an accredited theologian. She wrote "Beware Those Dolls" Part 2. So I could go to the trunk of my car and get a copy of my book and use up the rest of your interview reading that chapter. And
Right.
wouldn't that be fascinating? Oh, that just caused my eyeglasses to fly off the desk.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. But yeah, no, as far as the demonology thing is, I won't turn down the case. If it is that bad and I couldn't handle it, then I'd call you and you could come up and help me out.
Yeah, I'm sure you could handle it, but perhaps putting our minds together could,
It's always, I had this case once and I brought in another guy because he was closer to you. You were busy. Oh, you weren't even in the area. You're out in,
who knows what I was doing.
You were gone from the area for a little bit. So I brought this other guy in
New York
to help me out. I actually brought in 5 teams because it was 2 houses. I got 5 teams together. We investigated 2 houses and took care of a thing. But I often say this: if it's that bad of a demon, sometimes 2 people that know what they're doing is better than 1.
In that case, yeah, they say too many cooks spoil the broth. But I think in that case, a couple of people who are mature and grounded and like-minded on the same page can
because
be more effective than the individual.
Right. These things can hurt you. It's not what you see in the movies. Definitely what you see in the movies.
Because we have that mindset now that's been inculcated into our
right. Exactly. Like I just saw a movie that kept me up. I could deal with demons, but horror movies I don't deal well with. Went to go see the Pope's Exodus.
Exorcist. I haven't seen that yet. I know somebody. Actually, I have a friend in Indonesia who. Oh, jeepers! I didn't tell her about tonight's show. What? I think she knows we're doing it. A Jung, and she saw this. She's seen it twice, or maybe 3 times by now. The Pope's Exorcist. So it must be a good movie. She went back.
There's a lot of things in there that they take very good film liberties with. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
As you know from other cases you've been on that have made the movies.
Yes. And if I go on a case, I want my most precious piece of equipment. I think what's most useful is to have Elise Giammarco Carlson, because she's a pragmatist. She's a student of parapsychology. She won't deign to call herself a parapsychologist because it's kind of a loaded term.
Yeah.
What degree, what university did you go to be, a parapsychologist? No, I didn't say psychologist. I did do occupational therapy, parapsychology. Right. Which you wouldn't say the paranormal, you say paranormal happenings.
Right.
But, actually you would say the paranormal, but you would not say the parapsychology because that's something altogether different. Parapsychology is a more, and that's loaded too. If I say it's a more scientific, it's a practical approach to investigation. It actually studies the propensities of the human mind, which, at best poorly understood, delving into ESP, the different types of ESP, the ologies, and life after death, previous lives, reincarnation, Edgar Cayce.
All the good stuff.
Yeah, that's fun. Well, there's always something to talk about. But when you say paranormal, that just means things out of the ordinary.
Right.
That's an umbrella term. Parapsychology is it's more definitive.
Yes.
Studying, and it doesn't involve cryptozoology. Typically, it doesn't involve UFOs.
Right.
It's more like what's around us. Although it can go into time travel. We have someone who has lost, like they felt they went into another time dimension or a portal, or they lost time and they can't account for it. Then we wouldn't pass up questioning that or interviewing somebody, especially if they wanted the help, wanted to sound that off of someone. So what else? We've been talking. We're just gabbing here. We should have coffee in front of us, and I think that the questioning would be a little more cohesive if we had Elise with us.
That's all right. We're having fun, aren't we? I'm having a blast.
She's a fun girl too, but she just
every time we get together, we have fun.
Well, I can't help it. We do somehow. I don't know how we manage. We even on the phone, it's just like, I don't want to get off yet. No, come on. Of course, after 2.5 hours, I kind of usually have
exactly. Yeah. But no, it's always interesting having a good conversation with your colleagues.
Very much so.
Different things.
Yeah.
But remember this: anybody that's listening that has a team, please, we're out there to help people, the clients, but you're also out there to be safe for yourself. You must remember to please keep yourself safe.
Yeah, there was a show on Nathan David Schoonover. It used to be Nathan Drake Schoonover was one of the stars of it, and I know him. It was called, and we're talking. Um, it was one season, and I want to say it was 2007. Maybe no, maybe a little. Yeah, 2006 into 2007 was their season, and it was called Extreme Paranormal, and they had a gimmick. I think the show should have been a wild success, but it wasn't because people felt they were just being haphazard and trying bizarre experiments like a gimmick. Uh, uh, but they would do things like get sealed in a box and makeshift coffin and
Oh, I remember that show.
dumped into a swamp, or
Right.
risk setting themselves on fire. They would so it was called extreme paranormal. Now that's the concept that should have that could have taken off, but it just people weren't willing to take that seriously. They felt it was gimmicky.
Right.
What do you think of that kind of approach? Like just
Well, I think
things
I
for the
think
sake of
it
trying.
doesn't matter. I mean, whatever you use for tools, as long as you're getting evidence in return. I mean, you could go buy the most expensive equipment in the world.
You can, I can.
Okay. Or, well, I can't either, or you could go buy a cat ball and get the same evidence you will off the most expensive piece of equipment out there.
Mm-hmm. And the spirits are going to do what they're going to do.
Right. Or a toy car from a dollar store toy car. You put it on the floor. If the kid wants to play with the spirit of the kid, they're going to play with it.
What's your opinion on divination? The tools, the
yes,
standard classical things like the pendulum.
All right.
A tarot deck could fall under that.
Yes. All right. So I use two different ways of divination.
What do you do?
I use pendulums. I'm very good at the pendulum. I've always used the pendulum. I have an
ability with that too. They will not turn the pendulum. I don't know if she's just very steady. Pendulum would not move for Elise. It will
at all. Yeah, it pendulums work differently for different people. I tried dowsing. Dowsing wasn't for me.
Dowsing wasn't for you. Dowsing wasn't.
I have my team case manager, Sarah. Dowsing rod. She picked up like this. She's got every type of dowsing rod. She's real good at it.
I like dowsing rods. I don't take them especially seriously. But if you want to be popular when you're giving a presentation, you want to give a good lecture, have dowsing rods in your satchel or your briefcase.
Right, which I do.
They will entertain because they're freaky.
Right. There's another side of divination that I use too, to close portals.
Oh, would it not? Oh, what? No, you're not talking about a spirit board, or
no, I'm talking about glass. No. I'm talking about glass divination.
Glass divination.
Yeah, David Wells from England, when I was with New England Ghost Project, taught me how to do glass divination, and I have a great story on that one.
Is it?
So I'm doing a talk at the Drake Historical Society many years ago, fundraiser, and we go to the living room of the old house that got activity in it. And I get the glass moving on the table. So it's a glass. You put one finger at the top of it. You get a bunch of people. You ask the question.
Spirit board.
No. Yeah. It's
need a meniscus like any water underneath it, or if it's
no water, no nothing, just an empty glass.
You don't want to put it on sand either. You want
on the table. Yeah. And that's great for large crowds. You could get small tables set up and you actually do glass divination. And the ladies were running it. My finger was on it. This guy goes, I don't believe you're doing this. You're moving this. I said to the spirit, I'm going to take my finger off, keep answering the questions and moving the glass.
Right.
I took my finger off. He ran out of the building, screeched his tires, and then you hear the police. Because the Drake Historical Society was near the old police station. He got so scared, he screeched his tires right out. They got pulled over.
He's almost like an audience plant. I kind of like that reaction when somebody takes it. I've had that reaction at a seance, given at Slater Mill, which you came several times. In fact, when it closed, you had a pending paranormal investigation, and we couldn't go through it because Slater Mill shut down. Rather suddenly, by our perspectives, March. The last day was March. My last shift was March 13th, Friday the 13th, 2020.
Wow.
And Elise and she was assisting me with a ghost hunt, actually, evening tour. And I didn't know that was my last shift there. I locked up, and, maybe that's good because it's kind of tough to look around and say goodbye. How do you? To
Right.
I worked at for 14 years, all the changes
Yeah.
in my work. Well, it has just struck 9. We started a few minutes late, so we'll give you a little
that's
bit here. Best way to get in touch with you? You said Essex County Ghost Project.
Essex County Ghost Project.org or 978. This is the best way. 978-376-2807. That's my cell phone.
Well, thank you for giving that out. Could you say it one more time?
978-376-2807.
For our listeners in Indonesia and the British Isles, I want them to remember that.
Right.
But you're not hard to get in touch with, even if people didn't have all this information.
Right.
Ghost Project, and they come up with you.
Yes.
And once somebody learns how to spell your surname, that's a good key. Tom Spitalere. There's son of French Spitalere.
I know, isn't it? Irish too.
I'm past misspelling it, but I'm sure I had some times where
everybody misspells. It's not a big deal.
IR. Well, you will be welcome to come. Every once in a while, we have a repeat guest. It's uncommon, especially if we had technical issues and we want to do them justice. But just our guests are so interesting. I love listening to them.
I'll be more than happy to come on and talk about what's going on in the paranormal.
Yep. And when you're a massive Paracon, your Marathonacon happens in Maine, it is going to be, or maybe it's going to be closer. Maybe it's going to be closer
this year.
Good.
And you'll be getting a phone call from me. Don't worry. You'll be getting a phone call.
And I'll think, oh, Tom, he said he's going to call me when he has something that could be demonic. Hi, Tom, I'm ready for you. Yeah, my event's coming up. And it'll be more like that. Yeah. I do a pretty good Tom Spitalere.
You do.
I do. Hey, Tom, yeah, well, it's going to be bigger and better this year than ever before, but it didn't go on last year, but now it's better. We got,
we did go on this year. We just moved it. We did have something this year. We moved it to the Haven Methuen area.
Good.
Just do a little differently.
Scheduling is, as just like raising funds for charitable works or restoration of buildings. Scheduling is a very tricky
it is
discipline. No,
it is.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
all right, Cal. Well, thank you very much.
Let's see. I've got some instructions here, but I knew this anyway from recent experience. Make sure you click on Leave Studio.
Yep.
Which is a very easy thing to forget, but it keeps you in stasis. You're like a transporter signal, a meta pattern, and you're still there. You're not there, but your influence will be. So you make sure you leave studio, and we're going to have our, goodbye segue music and all that. But okay, you hit that now, and I'll say goodnight to you, and then I'll say goodnight to our audience, and then
hit now. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. I got rid of him. Not that that's a good thing, but he said goodnight. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your questions. We just love having you. It's better with Elise, but I don't mind going in alone now and again. We've always got a guest to talk with. Thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you 2 weeks from now for Panoramic Perspectives. Good night.